What's goody? Hello, everybody. Hi, Bryn. Hi, Jennifer, Rena, Angela, Susie, Brittany, Sandy. Hello, True Crime Analyst. Oh, it's a pleasure seeing you. How is everybody? You've never heard of this case, True Crime Analyst? It's a bizarre one. Obviously, I wouldn't be covering it if it wasn't like a very interesting, bizarre-ish one. Hi, Queen BTU. I don't know if I've ever seen that name before. Obviously, Brittany. Exactly what Brittany said, ladies and gentlemen. Hi, Anna. Hi, Callie. Sharon. Ooh, I see Gina. I see Gina from a while ago, though. Hi, Wolfie. Well, I'm very happy to have you here, Queen BTU. Queen BTU. Just Steph. Oh, well, thank you, Steph. That's so kind of you. Oh, okay, Carrie. Well, I'm happy to have you all here. We're going to be covering an interesting one. It's, I don't know, like how many of you guys have heard of this case, like the bizarre lead mask case from Brazil? It's about Manoel Pereira de Cruz and Miguel José Viana. Now, don't like get on me for how I pronounce that because I can't do it. Hi, Courtney. Nope, we literally just started. Okay. No, you guys haven't heard. Oh, it's a good one. It's a good one. It's gonna leave your head spinning. Okay, I'm gonna drop this in the chat because my two panel guests are Allegedlyw with BrittneyJ and Bryn Williams, my favorites. And then I'm just gonna get up in the background real quickly. You've read about it, Carrie? Yeah. It's interesting. Me too, Callie. I love this stuff too. Anything bizarre, unsolved, just wacky, right up my alley. And what I love about this is that it's true crime, but it has some conspiracy to it. Hi, Nasa. Hey, why can't we find AOLmail.com? Hello, Brittany.
Hi, everyone. How are you?
Good. What's cooking good looking?
Well, I was going to show my face tonight, but we'll have to put that off for another day because today's been pretty rough, and I didn't get to put my pretty face on yet, so we'll just have to wait. You look very pretty, though. I love your hair.
Thank you.
Yeah. You're one of those people that can get by with glasses or no glasses. Some people look. See, this is why we love Bryn, right? I said, okay. So that's it. That's it.
From here on out.
From here on out, I'm dressing the part.
Bryn, you're amazing.
Sorry.
Hey,
I teach high school drama, so props and costumes are kind of my thing, right?
Oh, you would have been my favorite teacher, Bryn, for sure.
Oh my God, you would have totally been my favorite teacher. So if anybody doesn't know about this case, those glasses might seem really irrelevant, but they're actually really relevant to the case, and it's so funny. God, you all made my eyes tear already, and I didn't even start yet. Oh my God. You guys are so funny. So yeah, this is a bizarre one, right? Hi, Chat Bunny. Lori,
hey,
hi. I didn't even start.
I still vote that we should wear tinfoil hats.
I learned the hard way. They're really hot. There's a reason why people use them to keep food warm.
Really? I didn't know. I didn't know that.
If you want to cook your noggin, put one of those on for a while.
Well, I'm pretty sure it's meant to retain heat and stuff.
Yeah, and to deflect the the microwaves and the radio waves.
Oh, goodness.
So that they can't hack your brain.
Oh my god. I'm sorry, you guys crack me up. Okay.
Thank you for the song, by the way, Bryn. I just want to say that. I'm going to stop interrupting now, but thank you for the song.
Oh, you're welcome. It's always fun.
Okay. So I'm excited about tonight.
Yeah, it's a weird one, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, Callie, aliens. Okay, Wolfie. Yeah, like I've said, I love true crime, but I really am drawn to the bizarre, the unsolved, the ones that leave you thinking, what plausible explanation could there possibly be? And this is one of those cases that I remember looking into it for the first time, and I'm just like, what? That is Bryn. Is that Bryn? That is Bryn. We got Bryn and Allegedlyw with BrittneyJ. Hi, Tia. Can someone drop Tia's channel link in the description? You guys subscribe to Tia. She is really, really awesome. Hi, MJ's Life. Okay. This is my cup of tea. All right. So let me share my screen. There's not that many photos, unfortunately, because this is in the 1960s, Brazil, and I guess there's just not that many photos. Hi, Dylan. Yeah, of course, Tia. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so can you guys see that? Can you guys see that?
Yep.
Okay. Awesome. So like usual, I'm going to give a little bit of a backstory and then we could chime in and bounce off each other. So this is Manoel Pereira de Cruz and Miguel José Viana, 32 and 34. And they are both electronic techs. Oh, thank you, true crime analyst. They were last seen by their families on August 17th, 1966. Their bodies were discovered on August 20th, 1966. And the cause of death is undetermined. So on the afternoon of August 20th, an 18-year-old boy who was flying his kite on the Vintém Hill, don't slaughter me because I'm not too sure how to pronounce that, came across the bodies of two deceased males and reported them to authorities. Vintém Hill had difficult terrain, so the authorities were unable to reach the bodies until the next day. A small team of police and firefighters arrived, and they encountered a very odd scene. The bodies rested next to each other, partly covered by grass. Each one wore a formal suit, a lead eye mask, and a waterproof coat. There were no signs of trauma or any evidence of a struggle. Next to the corpses, police found an empty water bottle and a packet containing 2 wet towels. There was also a small notebook that was identified with cryptic instructions. In one of the specific most recent entries, it wrote, and this is a translation, 1630, be at the specified location. 1830, ingest capsules. After the effect, protect metals, await signal mask. Now, I know that's a little bit confusing, but again, it's a rough translation. So basically, these 2 guys were found, and this is what they were wearing. So they're very thin pieces of lead that were hand carved to be like sunglasses. Anything to add yet?
No. They were wearing matching raincoats.
Matching raincoats.
And that they bought at the same time. I don't know if you're going to get into it, but the whole shopping trip before they went is weird as hell.
Mm-hmm.
No, absolutely. Keep going. because it gets weirder.
Yeah, just keep going because I feel like we're both probably we don't want to say anything that you.
It's okay. Listen, just chime in whenever you want to chime in. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So this is a little bit of like the timeline. Hi, Larry. On August 17th, Cruz and Viana left Campos de Goitacazes. I'm sorry, you guys. I don't know how to pronounce it. Which is where they both worked, again, as electronic technicians, with the stated intent that they needed to purchase materials for work. The two men boarded a bus to Niterói, arrived at around 2:30 p.m. Evidence shows that that's where the waterproof coats were purchased at a shop, and 1 bottle of water from the local bar. The waitress from the bar that was interviewed described Miguel as very nervous and frequently checking his watch as if he didn't want to be late for something. That is the last known place that the men were ever seen to be alive. It is presumed that they went directly from the bar to the spot that their bodies were discovered. No obvious injuries were discovered at the scene nor at the autopsy. Search for toxic substances did not occur. So even though there's this cryptic note that tells them to take these capsules, and these men are found dead in matching raincoats and suits and these lead masks, they didn't do toxicology reports. You know why?
I don't know why, but that was a major mistake not doing that. I was so mad when I read that.
Because the coroner's office was too busy.
Are you serious?
Yeah. The coroner's office was too busy. What do you mean they were too busy?
Especially because the amount of work it took to get them out. Like, they were in a fairly remote place, right? It wasn't like they were just off the side of a road.
Right.
And it took them like a day. They had to get like, it was like a military brigade had to go in there and get those guys out to remove the bodies so that they weren't in a like a very like open location.
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I thought that when I researched that they had someone take them to this location and the person came back the next day, seen the men laying there, kept on going, just assumed they were sleeping.
So the 18-year-old, the 18-year-old boy who found the bodies, he's actually a frequent visitor of this hill, and like Bryn said, it's very rough terrain. And he said he had saw the guys 3 days before this. And when he saw them, because it was the 20th that they recovered the body. So he saw them on the 17th, the day that they were last seen alive. And he said he saw these two men sitting on this hill. When he went back the next day, he saw the two men laying there. He assumed they were sleeping a whole 24 hours later. If you see two guys sitting on the hill, one day, and you go back the very next day and now they're laying on the hill, I'm sorry, but don't you think you go and check on them?
Okay, so I normally I would think that, that doesn't make any sense, but my son just turned 18 and they're not adults. Oh my God, he can be such an idiot. Like a year ago, he went to take the bus to school, which he never had to do. We live on the top of a huge hill. The school's at the bottom of the hill. He took the bus the wrong way. And it took him like 45 minutes to figure out he'd gone the wrong way. And he was like 17. So yeah, I can believe it. Sometimes they're just not aware. But yeah, that's so funny that he just saw them there and assumed they were sleeping and then came back a couple days later and like, oh yeah, they're just there. Right?
Like they're still there. What are you like?
Didn't they say it was the smell that made him realize that they were dead? Like it was they stank so much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So he was there on the 17th, saw them sitting. Went on the 18th, saw them laying there, but didn't disturb them. And then by the time he came back on the 20th, the smell of the decomposing bodies obviously alerted him and realized that they were dead or they were just chilling. Yeah. So,
And just a bit of background on these guys. They were electrical technicians, which means that they were fairly skilled and they had to be fairly well educated. So they weren't just like some weirdos or, drug dealers and stuff like that. Because they're, you could probably talk about later what people maybe thought they were doing up there, but and who they were meeting. But they were certainly not. They were not like criminals, known criminals in any stretch of the imagination, which also makes it kind of weird that they were kind of smart guys and they both did the same thing for a living. And
Right.
yeah, and they belonged to the same sort of circles.
Yes, they did. So yes, they did work at the same electrical company, Lori, and they were friends. So we're gonna figure out. Hey, Molson, man, always good to see you. Okay. So Tiffany, we're gonna get to that. So the coroner's office was very busy at the time, and by the time the autopsy was finally conducted, the internal organs of the two victims were too badly decomposed for reliable testing. So not only did they not test for toxic substances, but by the time they ended up doing the autopsy, their internal organs weren't viable anymore. Yeah, that's true, MJ's life. Okay. So one theory revolves around the testimony of a friend of the two men who claimed that they were members of a group of scientific spiritualists. These men were apparently attempting, drumroll, to contact extraterrestrials of spirits using psychedelic drugs. Right up my alley. I told you, true crime with that conspiracy stuff right in it. Believing that such an encounter would be accompanied by blinding light, the men cut metal masks to shield their eyes and may have died of drug overdoses. This account is corroborated by the esoteric diary entry found at the scene and by mask-making metals and literature concerning spirits found at the men's home. So right here, I'll unpin the comment. How do I unpin the comment? Hold on, let me unpin it. Okay, so these are the lead masks. These are the two men. And right here, before I translated it, is the latest entry into the diary that was found by them. And again, I will read that diary entry one last time. Well, probably one last time for this minute, because I always go back to it. It's just so interesting. Okay, so it said, 1630, be at the specified location. 1830, ingest capsules. After the effect, protect metals, await signal, mask. So weird. Okay, so both of these men were married with kids, and they were very well liked within the community. They wouldn't have been able to see anything through these masks. Based on prior diary entries, it seems as though the men have been dosing up on whatever these capsules were for weeks prior to their death, whether it's right after their meals or bedtime. We don't know what the reason was, maybe to build a tolerance. We're not exactly sure. Handwriting experts claim that the last note entry that was written in this diary, this one right here, the cryptic one, even though the entire diary was filled with a lot of numbers and cryptic writings, wasn't written by either of the victims. What? That's so weird to me. Substances were never discovered or followed up on because, again, the coroner and officers were too busy. What do you mean too busy? Like, how many cases do you have going on like this? Why were they on the hill? Who were they meeting? And what was this signal? The men left their homes around 9 a.m., intending to buy electrical parts and a used car. The officials, when they came on the scene. So The men were in suits, in matching raincoats, these lead glasses, an empty water bottle, a bag filled with 2 soaked towels, and their diary, along with their licenses and a little bit of money. They left the home with a combined amount of money of around $1,350, but they were only found with about 5% on that, 5% of that on the both of them. Their hair follicles were tested, but neither seemed to be exposed to an abnormal amount of radiation. Oh, Brittany, did you fall off? Sorry. Because a lot of people were theorizing with those lead masks, like, could it have been radiation? Could have been, what was it for? You know, like, usually, at least like when we do x-rays and stuff, we're covering the remainder of the body, not the eyes, if you want to be protected from radiation. But this is just the eyes. But again, in those books, because they were scientific spiritualists and they had books on scientific spiritualism, and they would claim that it was this huge burst of light that would literally blind humans. That's how they would explain it. So anything you guys want to add up until now?
So yeah, a couple things. So they were known for making stuff blow up. They like to build devices and that. So I think they were used to like making things and sort of buying things that were a little bit underneath the radar of what they were sort of allowed to do. So that I thought that was interesting. And then wasn't it the night after that a woman said she saw a huge orange light in the sky the next night, and claimed, a bunch of people then afterwards claimed that it was a UFO. And then the big one, the one that I just went, what the hell, was when then they realized that 4 years earlier, the same thing had happened. They had actually found a guy, very similar circumstances, with another lead mask in 1961, dead as well. And of course, no toxicology, no autopsy either. And so that I thought was super weird.
So 1 year after the deaths, one of the men's friends was arrested for inconsistencies in his statements. His name was Elcio Gomez.
Manuel's, is that the pilot?
Yes.
Yeah.
So he was Manuel's partner in homemade science experiments. His widow recalled that the two of them had a major falling out days leading up to his death. Initially ruled out as a suspect because he was with friends 4 hours away at the time. But during the second interrogation, he admitted that he and the two men are part of a secret society, along with up to thousands of electrical enthusiasts in the area.
That's so weird.
We're all getting together.
We're all going to get together and do super hardcore drugs.
Right. So all of them were self-proclaimed scientific spiritualists coming together for a common goal of establishing contact with alien species on Mars. Woo, I love it. I'm like, where are they in my area, right? Like,
yeah. These guys would have been fun to party with.
I totally would want to spend a Saturday night with them. Right, MJ's like, oh, I blame aliens on everything.
So this is my only thing. Like, as I was reading this case today, they claimed that they performed several different experiments, like in their backyards and stuff, and they blew things up. The only issue I have with that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but there was no reports of this by anybody.
No, there was reports.
There were reports. Okay. There's a lot of misinformation.
So, yeah.
Allie.
So one of the theories was that the things that were blowing up was they were trying to communicate, right? That they were really into, like, radio was huge at the time, and ham radio and shortwave radio. Like that really changed the world too. Because when you're looking at 1966, like, the TV was around, but really most of the world, especially places that aren't first world, were all radio. And so if you had a shortwave radio, you could really sort of bounce around the whole world and get signal from across the globe. And so these guys, I think, were really sort of honing in on those kind of wavelengths, and we're thinking that would be the way to communicate with outer space. And in a way, they were right, because then, when SETI came along, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, they did the same thing. They're just basically a giant microphone trying to listen into the into the universe, trying to receive radio waves. And we have received radio waves.
We have.
But we just don't know what they mean or what they are. But they could be a zillion different things. So I thought that was really interesting.
It is really interesting. And they actually were in communication with people around the globe through these radio frequencies. They had them set up in their house, and they would talk with other electricians. And it's just so funny. I love it.
I mean, I can't laugh because I get together once a month with a bunch of other magicians and do card tricks and stuff.
Awesome.
So I can't, but those guys are total nerds. Not like
but by the way, everyone, we will be having Bryn come on one night to do a virtual magic show. And I am
absolutely
totally excited for that.
That'll be fun.
Can I make a comment to Molson Man's comment?
Yes.
So the glasses are the whole thing that has me hung up. Of, like, I would normally just say, okay, they were just doing some drugs and they overdosed. But the glasses, they wore those glasses to shield their eyes from something, at least in my opinion, right? Why would you need those to go on a drug, what do you call it, like a drug trip? You wouldn't.
No, and I believe that they absolutely believed that they were going to see something, or something was going to arrive. And if you think that something's going to happen, like possibly an explosion or radiation, then you would think, maybe the glasses are the way so your eyes don't burn out of your head. Also, when you're doing things like hallucinogens, auditory stimulus is really important, right? So sometimes taking away that audio, that visual stimulus, you start to see other things. Like people go into, we talked earlier about Joe Rogan and isolation tanks. So in some ways as well, right? Once you go into with that mask on, it might have helped them as well to start to get into that mental place that they were trying to get to.
Well, I thought about that, but I also thought, I don't know, just this is the way my mind thinks. Like UFOs or something, they're trying to shield their eyes from the lights of the UFO traps. Especially because it's lead, right? It could be a million different things, but they chose lead, and lead has some very particular properties, like Melissa was saying, like especially for X-rays, and it was really well known for that, for protection and stuff. And these guys would know that. They would know all about electrical shielding, and they would know about all the different kinds of wiring and what the properties of lead would do. So, yeah, that's the really interesting part that I find about this, is all the people that are involved are fairly well educated. There's the pilot. There was these two guys who are electrical technicians. It's just really interesting that they sort of went down this intellectual search for extraterrestrial life, as opposed to some people going like on that physical search, where they're trying to pictures or whatever. These guys are really trying to like communicate. They really felt like they were on to something, or they were into some kind of zone. It'd be really interesting if there was some kind of diary to think about what they were thinking about. The other theory that I heard as well was it the Branch Davidian? No, it was a different one. The people in the purple jumpsuits who ended up all killing themselves at the same time. Do you remember that cult?
Yeah.
Are you talking about the Haley's Comment people?
Those. No, yeah. It was was it the love one?
Wait a minute.
I was thinking they all drank
Heaven's
Kool-Aid.
Gate.
Yeah, Heaven's Gate. Yes. Same thing. I don't think it was that. Some people have said that they were taking those to kill themselves and then to pass on, but I don't think it's that. Then the lead glasses don't make any sense.
Right, exactly. So, because one of the theories is that, well, perhaps, if you view your body like a vessel, like you are spiritually, passing on and maybe making contact. But it's just, I don't know. It's just a weird one, man.
What about their behavior before they went? Like
They
Bryn brought
said
up.
up until the past few days, they seemed again anxious, like, and one of the, sorry, I don't know how to do it because when I write notes, I'm like, well, shit, what if I jump ahead? And I know I jumped ahead. So they said one of the men's family members explained that he had just said like a week or two prior that he has a really big, hold on, let me pull it up. It is, I don't want to misquote it.
So just while Melissa's doing that, I'll also point out that especially in the 60s, as well as now, even in Brazil, the culture of using psychedelics for reaching higher planes of existence, of being more into spiritualism, is much more accepted than it is now. It's much more part of the culture. And it's certainly not as far-fetched with things like ayahuasca and other kinds.
Are you reading Lana's comment? Nothing here interests me. Well, thank you for stopping in, Lana.
There were diaries, wasn't there? Didn't they find diaries back at their home?
Well, you have to remember the books, the scientific spiritualists books that they did find in their workshops, like where they lived, passages were highlighted where it would explain this massive light, this massive, how did they put it? Okay, so it would be if you would summon alien spirits by doing this, it would give off an intense luminosity that could blind humans. So if they really believe that they were contacting these aliens, and it's already written in these books, like there's directions, and they had members, they were going to these meetings, they were doing these seances, so they followed this, they believed it. That led they went there with the intentions of contacting extraterrestrials and believing this light would be so blinding that they had to wear those masks as preventative.
Yeah. And the sound, the science is sound there. We call them EMTs, electromagnetic pulse nows. The military uses them to disable lights and electrical grids and those kind of things, right? We do have those kind of high energy pulses that are able to store up huge amounts of energy and then release them all at once. And so I think these guys were messing around with stuff like that, which is highly dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
Don't do that at home. Go to a friend's house.
So these guys hunted UFOs. They used radio broadcasts to try to get in contact with these extraterrestrial species, and they regularly attended seances to contact the spirit realm, believing they could coax higher beings from beyond the veil of reality and get them to reveal themselves. UFO reports were filed for that evening on Vintém Hill. Gracinda Barbosa went to police and reported seeing strange objects, like Bryn said, floating above the hill. She described them as orange with this red, fiery glow around them. By the time she got her husband, they were already gone. Other residents in the area came forward and confirmed that they had seen the same thing. Miguel had told his sister days prior that he had an important mission coming up. Wow, I looked all that way for an important mission. Well, he said days prior to their deaths that he had an important mission coming up, and it was top secret. So possibly these two men were tasked with doing some type of experiments up on the hill. LCO explained that in order to establish contact with the great beyond, the three of them had built a device in Miguel's backyard 2 months before they died, but it exploded. 4 years prior to Miguel and Manoel, Hermes Luis Feitosa was found on Criazaro Hill, about 3.5 kilometers east. He was also an electronic technician, also found with a homemade lead mask, and whatever killed Miguel and Manoel likely killed Hermes. Did they possibly know each other? And like Bryn said, no toxicology, no nothing on this guy either.
Yeah, but how many electrical technicians who are into spirituality can there be in that area? I mean, they had to know each other. Is what I think. I think it would be very difficult for them not to if they traveled in those kind of circles, especially with the kind of communication that they would do.
These electrical engineers really had it.
Yeah, they were nerds, man. But
sorry, go ahead, Bryn.
No, I was just calling them names. You go ahead.
How could you have that many people? Okay, like just say it's drugs. I mean, I know DMT does it, but how can that many people have the same type of journey or trip, whatever you want to call it? You know, like if they're taking these drugs and seeing the same thing, you know, it's weird.
Well, you can have a joint hallucination, a shared hallucination.
Yeah, a group psychosis, you know, a group sort of that type of experience. If everyone's sort of taking it and everyone's sort of doing group activities and there's some ritualistic kind of things, you know, things like sweat lodges, or, I mean, it's not uncommon in a lot of different cultures to use psychedelics and to try and have spiritual awakenings or do spiritual journeys to try and, communicate with the other world. And whether these guys are calling it aliens or whether they're calling it God is kind of, doesn't really matter. These guys were just going about it in a very interesting way because they were electronic nerds, right? So that we're going to try and do this electronically, which is really interesting, and probably not very safe, as we found out. But it's a shame that we never found out what they were ingesting, because it sounds like they were definitely sort of dosing daily, and this was some kind of like a peak they were building up to. Right. It'd be very interesting to know. And why nobody ever did any research or was able to find any other information after this is a little weird too.
I mean, you could go down a Reddit rabbit hole with this case. Oh, it's like the theory. That's because these are the type of the cases I love where even the most plausible explanation is wild. And yes, Lori, the one that died 4 years prior was by himself, but under the same circumstances.
So they didn't do a toxicology on the guy either after 4 years, and I'm sorry. I just needed to ask that. No toxicology. And I was going to say that, Allie, and we even heard about Kessinger possibly doing microdosing. So that's something that we've heard of also in regards to the Watts case. Now, whether it's true or not, I don't know, but we've heard about it. But if these men were ingesting these capsules prior, what were in the capsules? Yes, we do know that the drugs were prevalent in this group of men, but I don't know. Like, I'm also trying to think of what's in a capsule version. I mean, I guess you can make anything in a capsule version, but what would make this dose so different that these both men died?
And that's the question, right? And because they're very intelligent guys, you think they would understand their doses or obviously they've had experience with this. So it seems very deliberate that they went to this place at this time wearing those clothes. I think that this was like the time. And I think they either took a whole lot more because they wanted to sort of break on through or, to do that. Or they were trying to take something different and they did something different to themselves. Like they set off like some kind of bomb or something like that. But exactly. There wasn't pieces of them. That's the other problem, right? So
nope. There was no trauma. No sign of a struggle at the crime scene and at the time of the autopsy. Maybe, Carrie.
But some of their money was gone.
Yeah, so
they only had 5% of it.
So that's why some people thought it was a robbery, gone wrong, especially because of where they were and stuff. But just nothing about that makes any sense at all.
Because why would you leave money?
Yeah, and why would you leave them the way they were, and what's the hell
with the masks?
Masks, yeah, no, exactly. So that doesn't make any sense.
And the authorities did find scraps of the lead back at the men's house in their workstation, so it did confirm that it was them themselves that made these masks.
Yeah, this was a planned thing. Like this was planned out. They had steps to go through, and there was something arranged. Like they were all nervous before. Like they wanted to get there on time, right?
Right.
So there was something planned. They were planning on meeting somebody, whether that's a person or alien. I don't know what they were planning on meeting, but yeah.
And who wrote that cryptic note? Who wrote that last diary entry that had these specific instructions? And no, Carrie, they didn't end up buying that used car. But what were they do? Were they creating a DeLorean? Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Like, what'd you need the used car for? And exactly, Lori, why would you take the money in the first place? We know that they purchased these 2 matching raincoats, a water bottle. One of the men had the bottle receipt, basically where you could go and return it and get your money back. So that's where they were able to track their steps. And these 2 wet towels in the bag. What were the wet towels used for? Were they preventative in case something got extremely hot, maybe?
Yeah. So one of the arguments I heard was that people thought that they were expecting to live because they kept that receipt, because they were going to plan to get that deposit back. So that by keeping that, they weren't planning on dying, which is another way they're trying to debunk that idea that they killed themselves, right? That they weren't planning on coming down. Or they could have just been like me, where if you give me a receipt, I'm just going to stuff it in my pocket and then empty it out 6 months later when I have a shit ton of them. Right. Yes.
I don't know how guys are, though. Maybe you don't. I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you keep receipts?
I do. Yeah, I put them in my wallet, and I use them to use touch screens, because I don't like germs. So yeah, they actually work if you put your finger in. They work on touchscreens, like bank machines and stuff.
A barrier. Look at you, your own barrier. Not a lead glass mask, but it's a barrier.
Yeah.
Not chemists, just electricians. Well, thank you, Seth. Yeah. So let's see. So Gomez, the one friend of Miguel and Manoel who came forward, alleges that the 2 men maintained a secret radio communication center in their homes. And this comes back to they were keeping in touch with each other, and they were speaking to members of this secret group and others even around the globe. Gomez claimed psychedelics were a useful tool to establish contact with aliens, as they open up the mind to a wider range of frequency. And as crazy as that might sound, if you do your research in science in regards to frequencies and vibrations, it is kind of like magic. It's not that far off. You just need to have an understanding of certain frequencies. It's the same thing with different dimensions. You know, there, like I said a million times, there's 21 dimensions happening around us, but we're 3-dimensional beings. There's things happening at different levels of frequencies that we are just not able to perceive. The same way, if you put water on an amp or a bass and you set it to different frequencies, this water will create the most beautiful, amazing patterns. Actually, you should look up those videos. Yeah, shapes and patterns. It's incredible.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the detectives have found evidence in Miguel's own workshop that backed it all up. Scraps of lead, books on scientific spiritualism, warned that summoning of alien spirits would give off an intense illumination. Oh, Britt, you keep bumping off and I don't even realize. That would blind humans. So Charles Bowen, who is a writer, dived deeper into Gomez's claims, and he explained that there was an explosive incident that occurred the summer prior to the men's death. On June 13th, 1966, all members convened at Altafona Beach. Miguel and Manoel set up their homemade instruments. Shortly after, Gomez witnessed an intensely luminous object descending over the ocean. This craft then shot up back in the air before exploding over the sea. The blast reportedly could be felt 15 kilometers away. What? It's a big blast. Right, Molson Man? So the Brazilian and the Navy Air Force began taking interest in Miguel and Manoel's experiments, which is so funny. Like, these guys are just blowing shit up. Who's to say that they weren't on the right, who's to say that they weren't actually getting somewhere, though?
Well, yeah, and just like you were talking about a minute ago about things existing in different frequencies, right? Just a couple years ago, they won the Nobel Prize for the discovery of the Higgs boson particle, right?
Yes.
Which exists in our dimension, then exists at the same time in another dimension, but we're not able to perceive it at the same time. Double
slit experiment?
Yeah, so things like, I think, really sort of grounded in science, and then you sprinkle on some heavy duty drugs and you can go to some pretty funky psychedelic pandemonium places.
Absolutely. And it's the same thing kind of when you fall down the conspiracy hole, when you realize that one thing can be true, you can get paranoid though and start to think everything is conspiracy. I remember when I figured out 9/11 for the first time. Once you realize something like that is possible, then you start to think everything is this big setup, everything's this big conspiracy. You do have to kind of pull yourself back a little bit and grab a hold. So I couldn't imagine. I'm sure they were making advances. I'm sure they were having everything backed up by science. But between the drugs, and even though I do believe the drugs do lift a veil up of reality, absolutely, and you're able to perceive things that may be happening that we're just not able to perceive normally. But it also, there is the factors of then you kind of fall down the rabbit hole and you could be making stuff up too.
Yeah, it becomes difficult to counterbalance what you perceive with what is actually provable, what is real per se, right? It sort of reminds me a little bit of have you seen the movie Contact?
No.
With Jodie Foster. It's an amazing film about contacting aliens. Okay, I can't tell you because then it'll spoil it. But anyway.
No, I don't care about spoiling it because I'm going to read the synopsis anyway.
So the idea is when she finally is able to contact aliens, it only happens in her mind, right? Because there are these beings that travel light years and billions of light years away. They just travel through thoughts and through brainwaves and through frequency and just live as parts of her memory inside, and then are able to travel wherever as they do that, right? It's just a different way of perceiving your own reality. And
similar to astral projection. It's your soul, it's your non-physical body leaving, but your consciousness. We're not able, see, as smart as we are and we're able to make up for everything that our body is, we still don't understand what consciousness is. We don't know what it is. We can't explain it. Right? Can someone drop Megan's channel link in the description? I mean, not in the description, in the chat. So some people speculate that the two men committed a new age suicide. They planned to move on to a higher state of being, and they were shedding their physical forms by ingesting deadly chemicals. But again, then why the lead masks? Then why these wet paper towels? Then why the cryptic note that wasn't written by either of them? What was the signal? That's what I want to know. Wait for a signal. What signal?
Yeah, and if I'm going to go somewhere, and I know that I'm going to go somewhere, I'm going to say goodbye. I'm going to say, see you later. I'm going to leave a note. I'm going to be like, sayonara. I'm just not going to not tell anybody, right? So they would have told somebody if they were going to be like, now's the time, man. We're getting on the UFO. We're going to the mothership. They didn't say anything, right? So nobody knew. Their families, this was a total surprise to them. So that seems odd to me.
Brittany? Look, I'm stuck on the money thing. What would money have to do with anything? I think that there was at least a third person there with them. I'm not saying that that's why they died, but maybe there was a freak accident, and the third person survived. But like aliens, or if it is aliens or something like that, they don't care about money. So the whole money thing has just got me mind effed right now.
Well, if they were planning on returning, if they didn't plan to die, it would make sense they had money on them.
But the portion of their money that's missing, you see what I'm saying? Like they only had 5%. So
yeah, what did they spend it on?
There were no receipts though, were they, that showed that they spent the money? It's as if the money was just taken. Like that's how I read it. Like some people say they were robbed. Yeah, no, I agree. They didn't have any anything that was worth the money, so I'm not sure where the money went. Yeah. So it makes me wonder if there was a third. And then there was grass on them. That's another thing. The grass. I mean, and that may be significant, but I just feel like there was someone else there. Maybe like somebody, maybe that you're saying that maybe they planted that there. Because possibly, again, if it's a robbery, I'm stealing your weed as well. Sorry. Yeah, true. That's true.
And why would you leave any amount of money?
Yeah, that's true too. Especially if you're going to kill them, right?
Maybe there was a third person there and something went terribly wrong and they abandoned them. Because you have to remember, there was no sign of struggle. There was no sign of trauma. Nothing.
Yeah, that's my thoughts. Like, maybe it affected them differently. The third person survived it somehow and made off with the money. But I mean, I can't disregard what they were doing there. I don't think it was just a bunch of guys hanging out doing drugs and that was it. There was far more than that, but I do believe there was a third person.
I wouldn't put it past it, yeah.
Yeah, well, there was the other theory that they were buying possibly radioactive materials to make some of their bombs or some of their devices, right? That weren't they were trying to get to that next level. So maybe they're meeting some sketchy people.
That's what's theorized. They never ended up buying the used car, Tiffany. Sorry. And yeah, Molson Man agrees, Brittany, that the grass is important. But yeah, be real. So they left the house with about combined between the two men about $1,350. But when they were found, they only had about 5% total of that. So what happened to all the money? Were they possibly meeting up to do these sketchy materials, and something went awry? But again, why wouldn't there be a sign of? It seems as if whatever was in those capsules just, made them overdose or something. But why wouldn't they test for it? Why wouldn't they test that? That's the moment it becomes sketchy with me. The fact that the Brazilian Navy and Air Force were already aware of these men and they were already interested. And they have these cover-ups. And as you see, as I continue to tell the story, there's a lot more things that happen that are shady. And it makes you question, well, why? Unless it was a cover-up of some kind.
It reminds me a lot of the Dyatlov Pass, Melissa, with the lights in the sky and the government, well, what I assume is a government cover-up with Dyatlov Pass, how they won't, they don't want to do the correct procedures when it comes to an autopsy. Well, the same here, just like, okay, if the coroners were too busy with the two guys that passed away, what about the third one that died later? The coroners were too busy to see if he had drugs in his system.
Well, the third one actually died before these two.
Okay, he died before. I'm sorry. Okay, so but they still didn't do anything about finding out if there were drugs in his system either. So
how can they be busy twice?
Exactly. Like, what's your excuse? Why would you not? Like, that would be the first thing that an investigator would want to look at, especially when there's no signs of foul play at all.
Yeah, especially when they're wearing lead masks, right? And
they were in full-on Men in Black suits with these matching raincoats, lead masks, bizarre diary, cryptic notes with directions, instructions, and wet towels and an empty water bottle. Do you think they used that water bottle to soak the towels?
That was going to be my question to you. I have no idea. Why were the towels wet, and why were they keeping the towels?
Right.
And, I've thought that maybe they were potentially agents. They said there's a lot of them. Maybe they're agents for a government branch that we don't know about.
Possibly. And to answer the question, the Brazilian Navy and Air Force began taking interest a couple of years prior because these men were testing equipment. They were testing technology. And I don't know, there was a lot of UFO activity going on in Brazil at this time. It was actually pretty prevalent. So I don't know if they were more interested in contacting extraterrestrials or the equipment itself. Okay. So in 1969, the authorities found a suspect. Gordon Creighton was a writer, and he did a follow-up of the case and clipped together newspapers that were writing down what happened at the time and outlined a new theory. A confession was in there for the killings, actually. from Hamilton Bazzani, who earlier revealed to one of his relatives that he was partly to blame for the killings. He, what's it called? He explained he was actually in prison when he was interviewed, and he was serving a 50-year sentence for smuggling. So he said while he was on the run from the law, he was held up, and pardon how confusing it is because it is kind of jumping. Like, he was on the run from the law. He was held up at a safe house in Rio. He was contacted by 3 associates who offered him a hit job for money. And it was enough money to last him for the next few months so he could, lay low. He went to the spiritualist center where they found their targets. It was Miguel and Manoel who was there. They attended this seance, and actually it was the master of the center who had hired them. So once they got their eyes on Miguel and Manoel, and they eyed them up because they were aware they had money. Again, they had that $1,350 on them. So they signaled that they were their targets, planned to intercept them, and snag their money. So they ended up driving Miguel and Manoel under the pretenses of whether they were going to get a ride home. It's unclear. And they ended up going to the hill where they were found, forced them out of the car and up the hill. Hamilton claims he remained in the car, but when the associates returned, they had the money, but Miguel and Manoel were no longer with them. He quoted that they said, "We have killed them both. We forced them at revolver point to ingest the poison." The spiritual leader was already in police custody, and the rest would follow soon. As time went by, though, there were no follow-up reports on what happened to these men, no trial, and no more talk about it whatsoever. So Gordon speculates that possibly none of this happened at all, and the guy in jail was either paid off to basically say something, bribed to give this false confession, because he already was serving 50 years in jail. So you could get people to just confess to another crime that you kind of just want closed. You want the media attention off of it, whether it for goods, a lighter sentence, a better cell, I don't know. But that's really weird. So this guy comes and says he's a smuggler, and then all of a sudden now he's a hired hitman, and they randomly go to this spiritualist center, eye up Miguel and Manoel. How would they even know that they had that money on them? And why would they leave 5% of the money? If you're going to rob them, you're going to take all the money. But that still doesn't explain the lead masks, like the cryptic notes, the matching raincoats. Like, it doesn't add up to me.
That's what I love about this case, because no matter what conclusion you draw, there's always something that stops you. No matter what you think, there's a few hiccups, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's an interesting, I had a lot of questions about the confession, and none of it makes sense to me. But I do think that there might be a connection there as well, right? Because if I'm a smuggler at the time, who would be really valuable to me is somebody that has a really good communication network that's off the sort of beaten path, and somebody who knows a pilot, right? That's a good way of smuggling stuff. And they had a friend that were as well. So maybe there was some kind of connection, and he was, admitting it for a reason. But yeah, it seems really far-fetched. I would be more inclined to think, like you were saying, maybe they said, "Hey, we'll give you an extra biscuit in your lunch if you say we're going to do this for you, and you can live out 50 years with extra lunch."
Sandy, we don't know. There is just literally no news reports of it whatsoever anymore.
There's not a lot of information about this. I've been looking for the past few days to research, and even on YouTube, I think you get 1 hour long video, and then there's a lot of short clips, and that's about it.
Yeah, I had a hard time finding. I wanted to find information about the place itself where they were actually found. I couldn't find a whole lot of information besides just this story around it, and I was just trying to find out more about like what was happening like around there sort of politically, and it wasn't anything sort of special, but it definitely wasn't. It was the 1960s in Brazil, so it certainly wasn't first world. Like there's a lot of stuff that can kind of happen, and stuff can get lost and go through the slide through the cracks and that kind of thing. So things weren't sort of as buttoned down as they were in the States at the time. So I could see a lot of stuff like things like toxicology not getting done and that kind of thing. People are kind of late. The corruption was really big and huge, and it's still a problem there. So yeah, so many things could happen.
I agree with MJ's life. I think it's definitely a government cover-up.
Well, even if you want, say you want to think it's a government cover-up. I love that. Ready? The same with the Dialogue Pass. But what were they covering up? Were these men killed? Were these men actually potentially contacting some form of extraterrestrial species? I don't know.
Or possibly were they being funded by the government, like to perform this stuff kind of off the books, right? The government will pay for their stuff, and we'll see what these guys can come up with. And if they blow themselves up, then, hey, it's none of our concern, right? They're not part of us. A lot of different ways. Yeah, Lori, there was an orange light seen in the sky by someone that was reported the next day.
It was like an orange. Sorry, it was like an orange craft, and they said it looked like it was on fire. Almost this fire ring illuminated it.
Yeah. There's just a lot of similarities to me with this case and Dyatlow's Pass. Which I believe both are cover-ups. So that's all I was going to say.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I knew more about this electrician meeting, and what Smiley. This is Bryn Williams and Allegedlyw with BrittneyJ. So whatever guests I have on, unless it's like an on the spot, you could always find it in the description. I always keep their names there. But it just interests me that, the Brazilian Navy and Air Force took interest in this group of men. They weren't dumb, I highly doubt they were dumb. This is up to thousands of them, group of electrical technicians. And I'm sure that they were going through trial and error and making some form of advancements, and like I said, the UFOs were very prevalent at this time in Brazil, and it's different there than it is in America. There's not, and I'm not sure about Canada, but I'm assuming over here, we don't talk about it much, there's not much media coverage on. They're just starting to finally leak information where we're confirming these UFO sightings, but this is back in the 1960s.
Yeah, no, exactly. And it's also, like you said, the 1960s, where things like hallucinogenics are really starting to sort of open up worldwide. People are starting to see what they are. And LSD, I think you talked about this as well, basically invented by the government.
Yes, it was.
And so, and then it sort of spread it out to the hippies to kind of, see what would happen. What if something like that was happening here, but with this sort of very particular group of nerds, weird group of nerds? Hey, there's these guys, and they got a lot of smarts. What would happen if we gave them some of the happy pills? See what they come up with, right? And then they start seeing fire in the sky or whatever, and they start making stuff, and then maybe it got a little out of hand.
Bryn, Allie wants to know if you have a channel.
Oh, I do. I just post just music and stuff. But yeah, it's just, I don't know how you would.
You would have to give me your link so I could post it from now on, because I just found out he had a channel, but I didn't want to say it.
But if you just go to
subscribing to you, Bryn, I'm sorry, I didn't know you had a channel.
That's okay. If you could just go to one of my comments on Melissa's videos, just click on my name. That'll take you to my channel. Everybody has a channel, but we just don't always post on them, right?
I tried to look for you earlier, actually.
Yeah. So
and I couldn't find you.
So yeah, so just find one of my comments. I comment on every single one of Melissa Jade's videos.
Oh, good idea.
Yeah, so.
I swear.
Molson Man said they were given coordinates, and that's a good point. Who gave them the coordinates where to go?
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to find out more about that particular place, because I thought maybe there was some kind of special thing happening there, or maybe there was some kind of like there was historical thing, but nothing that I could find.
They say that being at elevated heights helps with the contact of the aliens the same way with the man 4 years prior was also found at the top of a hill. But it was very rough terrain where they were found. Like I said, you guys have to remember, they weren't even able to recover the bodies until the next day because of the terrain that it was in. And I'll hear it. Like, you have to look at the photos again. Look, like they're in the middle. It's just so weird.
Yeah.
It's just so weird. Like, I don't know, man.
Yeah, it just would have been so much easier if it had been a robbery. Why not make it look like a robbery? Why not just just do them in and leave them in a place like that? But why the raincoats? Why the lead glasses? Why the notebook? Why the behavior beforehand? Why get these guys anticipated about meeting someone? Like it just doesn't make sense just for money. I just can't believe that this was all just for money. That I just feel like it's either something that went wrong that they weren't expecting, right? That they'd either taken accidentally too much and they were planning on having this experience, and then unfortunately it went awry, or they met someone there and then it went awry.
Be real. Are you talking about Corey Good, David Wilcox, Stephen Greer? I'm just naming off a few. Oh my God, Sandy, can you guys imagine what their conversation was like before they died? 5 minutes in, you feel anything yet? Because that's a typical question you ask when you take something. You feeling it yet?
Yeah.
Oh, Bob Lazar, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my,
yeah, a lot of really, really smart people believe in the alien phenomenon, for sure.
Come on, you have to, listen, if you don't believe that there is, and again, we went through this, what is alien life? Alien life just means any life form outside of Earth. That could be down to bacteria. It doesn't necessarily mean it has to be intelligent life. I think it's pretty much guaranteed in this ever-expanding infinite universe that there is some form of life out there. It's just a matter of, have we come into contact with it?
Yeah, and are we any interest to it? If it's able to contact us, why would we be of interest?
If we weren't more advanced than them, we don't have any interest probably to them until we start screwing around. And we've talked about this in one of the lives, when we start screwing around with nuclear bombs and shit, or when we start to go into outer space. Oh, thank you, Allie, Bryn's channel.
Oh, thank you. Oh,
thank you, Rena.
Thank you.
So when we start to take, because you have to also remember, if we destroy this planet, you throw off the entire gravitational pull, you throw off the entire magnetic shift and everything, to where you could destroy this whole galaxy, and everything is a ripple effect. Everything has that butterfly effect and the chain reaction. And that would be a cause of concern for extraterrestrial beings. But as long as we are just sitting here and we're all just, if we found something on Mars and they were basically at the ape-like stage to us, we would monitor them, but we would just let them do their thing, until they start taking it to where it would be of a concern from us. It really makes me sympathize with Thanos. Oh my God, Sandy. Yes, Wilson, man. Oh, thank you, Be Real. That was so sweet of you. Thank you so much. Hi, Janessa.
Wilson, man. All of the questions that you're asking, that was exactly me a few hours before we started this live.
Yeah, no. Why the suits? Why the raincoats? Why the wet
raincoats?
towels? That's this is the weird thing. Like that. Like there's obviously there's no weather report for that day, so we don't know if it was raining or not. But it doesn't make any sense why those towels would be wet. Why they would keep the towels. Yeah, it doesn't. It's so many things don't make sense. Why suits? Yeah.
Why'd they put those raincoats on?
Yeah.
And they were in these suits. I'm sorry,
No
but it looks
time
like
of
a total
death
Men in
either?
Black.
I'm sorry. Did you guys see any time of death or anything like that? I didn't see anything like that when I looked it up.
They weren't able to. Yeah, they weren't able to assess it because the bodies were so badly decomposed.
Right.
Yeah.
We just know around 5:30 p.m. is when that 18-year-old boy who was flying a kite saw them on that hill 3 days prior to when the bodies were recovered. He saw them the next day, but they were lying there, so presumed dead. Maybe Elfin.
So we can assume that they were there for at least 3 or 4 days.
3 days.
Right.
Yeah, I think
3
at
days.
least 3 days. Yeah.
It's just very bizarre that a man was found under almost identical circumstances 4 years prior.
Yes,
And no toxicology.
Yeah, and then it didn't really come to light. I think, and I guess that makes sense, right? What happens to one person, you think, well, that's weird, right? Like this is obviously this guy's just wacko, and that's some kind of bizarre thing he had on his face. But then when it happens again, and 2 people do it, so you wonder if it was some kind of copycat. Or or whether it was some sort of kind of extension of what that guy was doing originally, right? Maybe
he was an
wrote,
electrical technician too.
Yeah, maybe he wrote that notebook, right? A notebook that they didn't write. Maybe they were taking his work and trying to take it further, right? He didn't make it, so they were trying.
That's a good one. Were they part of the same group?
And just as a heads up, if you want to look at this on your own, if you watch on YouTube, there is a little bit of misinformation, so be careful because some of the stuff I'm learning tonight is different than what I heard earlier today.
Yeah, that's why you don't always some YouTube channels do a good job at it, but I tend to try to go in and go on the internet, actually look up and have to read, even though that stinks, but you have to kind of compare, especially with cases like this, you have to compare information to try to vet out what is credible and what isn't.
It's funny with this case, even the skeptics that I read, because there's always people debunking these kind of things or saying why it couldn't be X or Y. Even those skeptics were saying that it's sorry, I lost my train of thought.
It's okay, it happens all the time. And Molson Man makes a good point. They were laborers technically, so there's no reason why, and they should have been in business attire. They were at their job that day. Why they would have business suits on like this? Yeah.
And who are they going to meet, right? That's the other question.
Who wrote the directions? It was, again, the authorities had multiple writing analysis confirmed that neither Manoel or Miguel wrote that cryptic, and the entire diary entries were all cryptic. A lot of it was numbers. So people were, if you go down the Reddit rabbit hole, people were trying to associate certain numbers with maybe items that they had to buy for their shop that they worked at. But there's no way to really get the records for the 1960s Brazil electrical shops, like the store numbers. But it seemed like it was just constant cryptic notes. But the latest entry, the one that said, again, let's go through it again for anyone who's here for the first time. It said, 1630, be at the specified location. 1830, ingest capsules. After the effect, protect metals, await signal, mask. So if you break that down, 1630, be at the specified location. So that's 4:30. They had to have known where the specified location was. 1830, ingest capsules. Why would they have to be there for 2 hours before they ingest the capsules. After the effect, which you would assume after the effect of the capsules, protect metals, await signal, mask. So I don't know what protect metals means, but then await the signal. There would be some form of a signal, and then probably put the mask on. Oh, Brittney got bumped off. Okay. Hi, Jeep Girl. I don't know, Bryn. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know what protect metals mean. Do you think that's a translation thing, or like is that mean the lead mask that's the protective metals, or what does that mean? Protect
maybe
metals?
Any other form of metals that they have on them, like
get rid of them, or
the same way that when you get you go in for an X-ray or any form, you can't wear any metals.
Oh, like an MRI or something. Yeah,
right.
Or yeah.
This is just so.
Yeah. So that makes me think as well that they're using like magnets or magnetization of some kind, right? Which again is that whole electromagnetic pulse, that idea of connecting magnetism with energy, and that was really big back then. When they first developed the first rail gun. Have you seen those that they have now on destroyers that are entirely run by magnets? They shoot giant pieces of steel as weapons, and they shoot them with magnets. They're amazing. And so they could have been trying stuff like that. I remember what I was trying to say before. The best source I found on this whole on this case, even the skeptic said, was from the UFO Source magazine. There was a magazine that was out in the 60s. Yep. It was all about UFO hype and stuff. And even the skeptics say that's probably the most accurate article.
That's where I was reading it from. The guy, the writer who ended up looking more into the case. And that's exactly what they said, is that he, out of everything that was reporting on it, they were the least crazy, the more spectacle of them all. Skeptic, not skeptic. What did I say?
Yeah.
I don't know. Molson Man. So they said it was like. Sorry, Bryn, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. It reminds me of Men in Black when they go to get the hot sheets, all the news, and they pick up the tabloids, and it's like, what are you talking about, tabloids? No, that's where all the real news is.
So, Molson Man, they said that they found the scraps of this metal, this lead, and it was like the thinnest form, the thinnest form that they could really slice it to, Like, I don't know, but still they said that they would not be able to see out of them. Like, if they were wearing them, they would not have been able to see them. So be real, just to go over it one more time. These two men were found on the mountain. They're both electric technicians, and they were found wearing suits, business suits, matching raincoats. There was an empty bottle of water next to them, a bag filled with 2 soaked towels, and these lead masks. And they were spiritual, what is it called?
Scientific spiritualists.
Scientific spiritualists, and they were part of a group that was trying to contact extraterrestrial species on Mars. And they believed that when you contact these extraterrestrial species, there will be such a massive light, some form of a huge luminescent light that would be so massive that it would blind them. So if they were going on this hilltop to contact these aliens, those lead masks apparently, allegedly, would be to protect them. If the young kid seen the 2 men while he was riding his bike, why did it take the authorities the next day to retrieve them? Rough terrain, but the kid was on a bike. He wasn't on a bike. He was flying a kite.
Flying a kite. It rhymes with bike.
Yeah, I probably slurred it and just sounded like that.
It'd be cooler if he was flying a bike.
It would be. It would be much cooler if he was flying a bike. It has to be some asbestos type sunglasses. They didn't know the dangers back then. Yeah, and they said that. They said over the time, lead particles ingesting, could have done real damage, even psychologically. But the men died at the same exact time.
Yeah. Well, and lead poisoning is the real deal for sure. You can't mess around. But yeah, it seemed like it wasn't something they were using. It was more just something they were going to use. I don't know if I don't think they were walking around with those things on.
You know what, Sandy? I thought about that too, with the raincoats and the wet towels. If it was for some type of deal with the electricity, because you hear of needing like a moist sponge or something like that.
Yeah.
Y'all are smarter than I am, but where I'm going with that.
Water is a great conductor of electricity, so a wet towel would absolutely be a great conductor for sure. You're absolutely right.
Oh, hi, Allison. It's very nice to see you. I haven't seen you in such a long time. Good night, Seth. Thank you for coming by. So, okay, let's go through. Brittany, what is your most plausible theory?
Okay, my most plausible theory at this point, and you know me, I'll change eventually, but right now where I'm at, I think more than likely in my opinion, they were government agents potentially conducting some experiments for the government. They found out too much. Maybe they went too far. I do believe that there may have been a third person there with them, and that explains why the money's gone. And they found out too much too soon, or maybe they wrote about it in their journals and they were going to tell somebody about it. Something happened to where they needed to get rid of them, and that would explain why we have no information about their deaths or anything like that.
Do you think that these two men were possibly government agents who were designed to infiltrate the group of the rest of the techs?
Ooh, I haven't thought about that.
Neither did I.
That's good.
Just popped up in my head.
That's very, very possible. Yeah.
But then why would they be dead?
Maybe they, like I just said, they were going to talk about it to someone, or maybe their job was done and the government will knock you off if they think that you're going to ever tell, or just to keep you quiet, even if you don't even give an inclination that you're going to do anything. They'll still get rid of you just to be safe. So maybe the mission was accomplished. Either way, I think that they were agents. That's like the most logical thing in my mind right now.
Do you think there's a chance that they committed suicide, or they were possibly given a bad batch, whether intentionally or not?
I don't think they killed themselves at all. Just because, like what Bryn said, there would be some type of a goodbye, whether it be a letter, they did something special with their family before. There would be something saying that, these guys knew they weren't coming back.
What do you think, Bryn?
Yeah, so I think, and I know I was making fun of these guys earlier, but I think that they were smart guys who got involved in a group of people who were sort of forward-thinking, kind of progressive, and very liberal, and they got into using some substances, and I think it got kind of culty. And I think that they maybe went down a rabbit hole of looking to trying to transcend and find, I really believe that they were searching, that these guys were, sort of astrocosmonauts or whatever, trying to find something, some kind of answer. And I think that they were eventually led astray by someone. And I think that person was part of, whether that be the cult. I think it was someone close to them. I think it was someone that they respected, someone higher up that was going to give some kind of information to them, and instead sort of got rid of them or whatever in that way. So I think they got involved with something that was bigger than them, and they for whatever reason paid that price.
culty, Sandy. That's funny. MJ's life, not in regards to anything strange. I mean, if these men were already kind of doing this, you know, like they were already doing it for years. They do these seances, you know, they meet up, they do these seances, they do these drugs. Yes, they were married and they had kids. And again, they had upstanding within their community. They were well-respected people. Good night, Mr. Seth. And yeah, exactly, Goose. It's the way things that were covered up that leads me to believe it was a homicide. See, maybe these two men were getting somewhere. Maybe they were making advances, and the government, we know the government, they ain't going to allow that. So they could have kind of like what you said, Britt, like they kind of led them astray, made them believe that they were going to do something. They were going to, and they switched the capsules out for cyanide or whatever it may be. And that would explain why it was never followed up with. But then there's the same guy 4 years prior. I don't know.
Yeah, see, the guy 4 years prior made me think that it could have been somebody setting that same person up, right? Setting them up again. That this was the way that they did that to try and sort of, you know, get people off or whatever, take people out.
Yeah, and then the fact that they said that there are so many of them, you know, there are a lot of them everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does sound like a cult, Tiffany.
But why would the guy be by himself? I'm sorry, Melissa, but why would he be by himself? Like, you would think that there would be a partner for him as well.
Yeah. Yeah, the reason why this drives me so nuts, and the reason why there's so many conspiracy theories, is because there's so little actual evidence. There's so little it's been so long, and there's so many different stories that there's so much room for speculation, and there's so many things that weren't done that probably should have been done, that leaves like those questions just can never be answered.
And there's only so much information that we could get. You know, like this was 1960s Brazil. Not only did they not follow through, well, the internal organs were severely decomposed, but there was also no toxicology done. And now, being that we're in 2021, there's only so much information. So yeah, again, if you guys want to go down the Reddit rabbit hole, oh, you could sit there forever. They break down, you know, all the prior entries into the diary. Some of them are able to translate it into what they interpret it to mean, what others interpret, you know, like there's a bunch of theories. It's just a matter of how far you want to go down. I don't want to go too bizarre, only because I want to stick to the facts, even though I love going down the bizarre rabbit hole. But I want to know who wrote that diary entry.
Yes, 100%. I think that would unlock so much of it if you were able to find out the person that wrote that.
Okay, Goose said, I think there was one of two things. Either they were government people or they weren't and started figuring things out. I like that one, Goose.
Yeah.
Yes, Sandy. They tested for radiation, but not toxicity. Makes me believe the guys were getting close to some sort of contact and the government covered it up. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but toxicity, like poison, is much common than someone dying of radiation poisoning, isn't it? Like, it's much more so why test for radiation and not for poison?
Exactly. Me too, Molson Man. Before I die, I need to see a UFO or some other being. My bucket list. Yours and mine too. Hi, Renee. And that would be awesome. Who said that? Goose said, I'm going to reach out to my old exchange student from Brazil and see if he's heard about this and see what they talk about down there. Because I would love to hear about what are your guys' most, you know, plausible theories. But again, it's UFOs. That's it. Just like Molson Man said, there were testimonies of seeing that flying object. What if their plan followed through? How do we know what their plan was? What if it worked?
Yeah. And like you said, because it's 2020 now, those people that were there then probably aren't alive now, right? Most of them. And if they are, they'll be exceedingly old, right?
And it's even sketchier. I would love that, Goose. it's even sketchier that then all of a sudden they came out with this, we found a suspect and he's already in jail, and it was actually the leader of this seance who hired these hitmans, and they were these smugglers, and nothing came of it. No trial, no follow-up, nothing.
And it just doesn't answer any of the questions, right? It doesn't answer, like, raincoat, notebook, lead eyeglass. Like, it doesn't make any sense at all, that confession to me.
Not at all. And the fact that there was nothing followed up with.
Yeah.
And, just like Dyatlov passed, there were a lot of people who tried to, and I know I keep bringing that up and I'm sorry, but it just reminds me of the same type of
sure.
government conspiracy, but just like with them, I'm curious to know if anyone's tried to investigate this in Rio and if the government's come after them. I couldn't find anything about that, but I would like to know if anybody's ever tried to investigate.
That would be very interesting to know.
Okay. What if they made contact and the ETs told the men something they weren't supposed to know? So the government blew up their craft and killed the guys before they could tell anyone. My brain is spinning.
Yeah.
What if they did? Yeah. What if they did come in contact with something that they weren't supposed to?
100%. And maybe the aliens were there and they should have been wearing, lead gloves instead of lead masks. and that's what killed them, right?
I do think they were, they accomplished what they were set out to do. And it maybe even, like you said, advanced further.
Yeah.
And that's why they were a threat.
What if they went beyond space and time and their physical body as a vessel, and that was what their plan was. They knew about it all along.
Yeah, these guys were determined. They had a mission, they had a goal. They were determined these were not guys that were despondent going off to the hill to off themselves. They were, it seemed like they were looking forward towards something, to being somewhere and something happening. So I don't buy the murder necessarily, that it was just like an off chance murder. And I don't buy that it was a suicide. It was either a planned type murder where those guys were lured there, or it was some sort of accidental overdose type of situation.
And don't forget that, again, what is it called? Miguel told his sister in the days leading up to his death that he had an important mission coming up and it was top secret. Yeah. So here's the only issue I have with if it was an overdose. Unless it was straight up poison versus like a bad batch, you would have signs of that. You would be foaming from the mouth. It'd usually be like a pink-like foam, coming out from your lungs. And you would have visible signs of being poisoned or having an overdose. These men had no visible signs of that. So even if it was a bad batch or poison, they said these men appeared as if they died peacefully in their sleep, in their raincoats. Like, you don't see? No, actually, I don't, Renee. I'll definitely check it out. It's just totally bizarre. Maybe one day, maybe we could go and fall down the Reddit rabbit hole and come back one day and do a live on just the most insane theories that we could find.
Oh, that would be fun. I would love that.
Yeah, Reddit's a dangerous place for me. I can.
I haven't figured out how to work it that well yet. I haven't figured out, it's not simple enough for me. If you don't keep up with this technology, you really, lose it. And, I feel so sad saying that because I became the parent where I just downloaded TikTok so I could try to upload, a video for YouTube. And my daughter has never been on TikTok. She's not allowed to have that kind of stuff. She just turned 8. But she was able to create a video, add these voiceovers, the music, edit it the first time she ever went on it. And I can't figure out how to even simply record myself with it. And I'm like, how do you naturally know how to do that? You've never even been on that app before. And it's holy crap, I can't figure out Reddit because it's not simple enough for me. I want the search bar and I want to type in Chris Watts and then I want it all neatly compiled into which theory hole. It's too all over the place for me.
Yeah, I struggle with that as well with Reddit. That's why I've never been big on it.
Okay, Sandy, and I get it, but here, again, why wouldn't they do a toxicology? If you find these two men deceased, you're going to assume foul play. Why would you not have a toxicology report, especially if there is a diary entry, the latest diary entry, that said to come here at this time, take capsules, and then these men are dead?
Yeah, and if they're taking capsules, it means that those dosages have been measured out, that they've been put in capsules, that there's been some kind of measurement happening, right? That there was an intentional dose there, so that they either knew what they were taking, or they were deliberately taking more, unless somebody, like you said, or like that guy said, at gunpoint made them take it. But it doesn't sound like it.
Well, that's a good idea. Maybe, Allison, maybe the cult and someone told them to prove their loyalty. Maybe it was like this offer, this sacrifice to try to get these alien beings. Maybe they thought they had to show or prove the ultimate sacrifice, or maybe they got so far into their technology and into their beliefs on what they had to do that they believed in order to make contact, they had to. I mean, have you ever seen Flatliners, the movie Flatliners? I'm going to say the original movie. Julia Roberts one. Yeah, but I'm going to show the original.
Wait, and they made another one?
Oh, yeah. They made another one a couple of years ago, but
so
it's
fucking
not.
Old. Okay.
No, yeah, come on, it's the original. You can't do the remake.
Yeah, Kiefer Sutherland, man.
Kiefer Sutherland.
Awesome.
Oh,
one of the Baldwins, the good Baldwin was in it. Yeah.
The good Baldwin. I love it. Yes, you're so right.
Yeah, that was a great movie, right? No, and they would get deeper and deeper and deeper into it. Yeah.
And so, like, when they realize when their heart flatlines, they have these amazing abilities, and they're able to, I don't even remember what exactly they were able to do when they flatlined, but
they were able to see after death.
Yeah, see after death.
They were died, and they were able to relive their memories, and what they ended up seeing, though, was their most traumatic memories coming back into real life, and it would come back into their real life, right? It was messing with them.
And they wanted to go longer and longer, but who's to say that this group of people didn't get to the point where, and this could correlate with the guy 4 years prior who was dead under similar circumstances. Who's to say that they didn't get to the point where they believed if we could cross over, we would potentially be able to make contact or something. I don't know what exactly crazy theory they had. And they tried it with the guy 4 years prior. And now they tried it again after they did more research and they got more evidence, whatever it may be. And now they tried with two guys. I don't know. But if the government had any knowledge of it, that would be a reason for them to cover it up.
Yeah. And maybe they made that first guy some type of martyr legend, and he was some kind of he was the first explorer, right? And everyone wanted you have to do this to go and be like him. And he was able to transcend, and, he was somehow their idol, or they worshiped him and they wanted to be like him. Because for them to be so similar like that means that there has to be some kind of connection between them, either in their social group or in their philosophy, or something that's making them use those same masks. So that there has to be something that all three of those guys all knew, a story that they all believed.
Or how about that guy succeeded? It may appear to us that he died. But what if he succeeded and they had some form of confirmation, and so now it was time for them to do it now?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, that they lifted him up and said, hey, this guy made it out, right? He was our guru, and then he did that and transcended. And only only when you really know that you can transcend, can you really transcend. And these guys thought, hey, we can do that too, can't we? Yeah, and then maybe they went off and tried to.
Lori.
I could see that. I could see that for sure.
She said, I have always watched Flatliners taking acid. Bill Mahoney character freaked me out.
Don't take acid and watch that movie. No.
I would feel like I'm flatlining.
Yeah, oh man.
And Sandy, yes. So one man was found 4 years prior on another hill under almost identical circumstances with the lead glasses and the suit, and they never did a toxicology or follow-up or anything, but no signs of trauma or any foul play like that. I always say that I think the government has some type of in with some of these writers and say, write a movie about this so we often society with things that are really out there happening. Yeah, there's a lot of predictive programming too. Hollywood predicts a lot of things. Okay, and I'm not talking about like just all the movie, like no, like this goes deep into like the Illuminati and that whole thing. Brittany could take you on that tangent, but they intentionally
I still say we
that.
need to do a live about that, Melissa.
We will.
Seriously.
Definitely. Like we said, Lori, like not really. They didn't say, there's no testimony at least or anything that I could find where the families were speaking out as if there was anything odd about these men. There was anything out of particular. The only thing that was ever said was Miguel's sister, who said that he had a huge mission coming up and that it was top secret.
Yeah,
So-
no criminal records. They weren't like criminals. There's like nothing outwardly wrong with these guys. They were, family men, regular guys.
And yes, Sandy, they were coming together and doing seances often. And she said, maybe it's possible they believed he was successful and coming through. Ooh, maybe they do believe they were having some form of communication with the first man that died prior.
I thought that it was in the journals. They said they made contact with the other side.
Ooh, I didn't know that.
In their journals, yeah. That's what I seen on YouTube. There was talk in one of their journals of contact with celestial beings. I've got it in my history. I'll send it to you.
It's really interesting. And yeah, absolutely, yeah.
But where the fact that he told his sister that they had a mission coming up, that's what really makes me think that they were some type of government agents, because that's what you would, that sounds like their type of lingo. They would say, I'm on a secret mission.
They knew whatever was about to happen was big, and they were excited. Like I said again, if you go back to the waitress's testimony at the bar that they were just at a couple hours prior, the last known location of them being alive, they were constantly checking their watches as if they were anxious and didn't want to be late. They knew they had to be somewhere. And I'm so glad that I found you too, MJ's Life. I'm sorry it was under such awful circumstances, but I'm very, very happy to have you here with us. Yeah, so I don't know. That, like, I wonder if the diary entries say that confirm that they had communication with extraterrestrial beings, like life beyond the veil, versus that particular man who died.
Yeah,
and
what is communication versus contact? Maybe they felt like they're having some kind of communication, and then this was the point of contact where they're actually going to have some kind of physical or intellectual contact with them.
Right.
I don't know. But I think we should do a follow-up live, and just pull out the most credible and the most bizarre theories that we could find regarding this case.
Oh, that would be so fun.
Mm-hmm.
That would. In Jay's life, Melissa's got some bizarre cases. She sent me a list. She is renowned for finding these kind of cases. If you like them, I don't know where she gets them, but
I've watched all of them, so I'm just pulling them out from my memory.
She's good. She can find the most bizarre. Like I wish, I think we should. I've held back, but I think you should cover Allegedlyw past just one time for
Maybe
people that may have missed it.
Yeah.
Maybe not right now, but that's a good case.
Well,
That's
I'll
a really
ask
good
you
case.
too. I'll ask you too the same question I always ask. If you could pick one unsolved case to figure out what truly happened, and anyone in the comments who wants to answer also, if you could pick one unsolved case to figure out what really happened, what would you choose? And Sandy, I'm very sorry to hear that. I hope you and your family are okay.
Oh, for me, it was when I was a little kid, there was a little boy that went missing in my neighborhood, and they never found him. And that always, when I was growing up, that always really haunted me, and I always used to have nightmares about that and stuff like that. So for me, it would always be this one kid that I sort of like was in my neighborhood that went missing. I'd love to know what happened.
Emotional connection, huh?
Yeah, no, for sure. But yeah.
What about you, Britt?
Okay, so I'm going to cheat. I've got 2 of them.
Go for it.
For me, it's Dyatlov Pass.
You took mine.
I'm taking Melissa's.
A good one.
Because this is the most bizarre case I've ever seen in my life.
It really
but then
is.
there's another one. There's another one, the Johnny Gosh case.
Yes, which I want to cover because of you. Bryn, do you know it?
Well, I've heard of it. Yeah, I'm not an expert, but you got to cover that one. That's another one.
We'll do that case.
Bryn,
that will be one of our next ones.
You would really, you would enjoy that one with us, Bryn, because it's a rabbit hole. But I theorize that he's still alive, and that's the part that bothers me.
Yeah.
So I'd really like to know what happened to him.
Really? Me too. O.J. Simpson. What could have possibly happened?
He wrote a book. I couldn't believe he did that. If I Did It.
Right?
Oh my God.
That cocky motherfucker.
What did he say? If the glove don't fit, you must quit.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but he was good. That was a good lawyer.
With the wet leather glove.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, my stepmother was a provincial court judge here in Canada, and what she always used to say when I talked to her about cases and stuff, and she says it's not always about whether it's right or wrong. She's like, most of the time, it's about whose lawyer is better.
Right.
And in that case, O.J. Simpson had the best lawyer, and that's what she said too. It's usually whoever lawyer is smarter, who knows the law the best, and was able to use the law to their own advantage, right? And that's what the law is about, right? Is using it, but it's usually the better lawyer wins.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, we got a Jimmy Hoffa. That's a good choice.
That is a good one. Oh, Jimmy Hoffa.
What happened to Jimmy Hoffa? Jonestown. Oh my God.
There are some rabbit holes for Jonestown.
Yeah.
Yeah. But okay, you guys, I'm gonna hop off now, but I loved having you guys up here. I love talking about this case. It's definitely a bizarre one to me. It's interesting. I love bringing it to people's attentions because now you guys could go and do your own research. And it's just, I don't know. Like, I don't know why people don't cover more of the, like, this particular case doesn't have that much information on it, so you can't really dig, but still just the thought and question, what happened, you know?
Yeah. And I'm going to speak for all the chat for a second, and I just want to thank you, Melissa, for continuing to make awesome content and for going live and continuing and not stopping. So thank you so much for giving us a place to come and hang out. One of my favorite things to do in the world is talk about weird things with interesting people. And that's what I love to do here with you and Brittney. So thank you for doing that. And thank you for continuing, because it would have been really easy for you to quit. And so thank you for not.
Well, I'm not, because I have people like you guys. So give yourself more credit. But thank you. That really means a lot to me.
We really love you a lot, just so you know.
I love you guys too.
You guys are fun.
So, and thank you everybody for being so supportive.
Yeah, you guys are awesome in chat. I got to figure out how I can chat and talk at the same time, but yeah.
For some reason, when you're on StreamYard, and I've learned this from being on many panels,
have you been on many panels? I wasn't aware of that.
Good one.
Me either.
No, I've only been one or two. But you can't, like, when you're on StreamYard, you can't. I could comment as the channel host, but if you want to, you have to, like, go on your phone or another device and go into chat and then do it.
Yeah.
It stinks. I don't know why. Yeah. But, thank you, Rena. And thank you to everyone in chat. Thank you so much. I love hearing all your theories. I don't know what we're going to do next, but I'm going to start going live regularly. I don't know if I'll be able to do every day, but every other day. And obviously, I love it when I have my two favorite panel guests on, B Squared, Brittney and Bryn. And so thank you very much to you guys. And I look forward to the next one.
All right. Namaste.
Thank you, everybody.
Yes, namaste. Peace, love, and light.
Thank you.
Y'all have a good night.
Good night, guys.
Good night. Good night.
Bye.